everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kara. If you're new here, hi, hello. Welcome to the best books of 2024. This is one of my favorite videos of the year, one of my favorite videos to watch ever, and I am so excited to talk to you about all of my favorite books in 2024. I read a total of 31 books this year, and I have a total of 5 top favorites that I'm going to be talking about with a few honorable mentions. I honestly feel like I've had a fairly good reading year. Like, I feel like when I was looking back through my list, I actually had a lot of rereads, but I feel like I've been really prioritizing the 4 and 5 star reads. Also got New Light, and I'm like kind of vibing with it. I kind of love that. So just a little fun shout out there. Let's get into it. Okay, first thing we're going to start off with is my honorable mentions. I have 2 honorable mentions to give a shout out to, and the first one is the Stormlight Archive. Yes, ma'am. Okay, this book series slaps. It slaps, okay? I am in love with this book series. It has consumed me mind, body, and soul. I did a reread of The Way of Kings earlier this year, and I just finished Words of Radiance like 2 days ago. I've like blasted through this book in like 25 days. It's an 1,100 page book, so I feel like that's pretty good for me, considering I read at a snail's pace. The reread is even better than I could ever tell you, okay? It's genuinely so good. I feel like I'm picking up on so much more than I picked up on the first time. I'm getting foreshadowing. I'm getting more appreciation for the crossover of the Cosmere, and like this series is just out of this world, legitimately out of this world, okay? If you don't know what the Stormlight Archive is, it's essentially Brandon Sanderson's massive epic fantasy series. It's going to be 10 books long in total. The 5th book in the Stormlight Archive was just released earlier in December, and that completed the first arc of the Stormlight Archive. The premise of this book is that there's this fantasy world called Roshar, and on this planet you have humans, and then you have like a humanoid type thing called the Parshendi, and they're basically like humans, but they have like shell type things on them. Like they have like carapaces and like crustacean type appearance to them, and the humans are at war with these Parshendi. The political intrigue is amazing. It goes so in depth. I'm extremely enveloped in these characters and the character arcs and the backstories of all the characters. It's just absolutely outstanding. Like genuinely, I think this is my favorite book series of all time. I could literally go on about it for hours. I did an entire video about the Cosmere and about Brandon Sanderson and everything like that. I will leave that video linked down below if you are someone who is just getting into the Cosmere and don't know where to begin. I just had to give a shout out to the Stormlight Archive because it's genuinely all I think about. Like I eat, sleep, and breathe the Stormlight Archive at this moment, and like this book series alights something within my soul that I can't even begin to explain. Okay? I just love Kaladin so much. Like I love you, Kaladin. Okay, totally switching gears from the Stormlight Archive, I have to give a shout out to this next book, and that is Quit Like a Woman by Holly Whitaker. This is a nonfiction book. It's the first book I read this year, and I honestly need to give so much credit to this book, okay? I am someone who I feel like I never really noticed how alcohol affected me, and alcohol is marketed to us in so many different ways, especially like around the world, but like especially in the US, to young people, to everyone. Alcohol is everywhere. It is part of many social situations, if not most social situations, and it's just something that is part of our daily lives. And I really had a kind of sober, curious mindset into going into reading this book. I honestly was just more interested in learning about sobriety and like people's experiences with that. I really did not expect to make any like changes in my lifestyle at all, but like when I tell you this book has genuinely changed my life, like I am not kidding you. I have probably drank over 75% less than I did in the last 10 years of my life this year because of this book. It completely changed my mindset around alcohol. I was not ever a heavy drinker. I would drink socially with my friends and stuff like that, but like I would maybe have like a beer on a Friday after work, but like that was about it. I really did not drink a lot even going into reading this book, but like after reading it, I have cut out alcohol almost completely. I do occasionally will enjoy like a nice cocktail or a nice glass of wine if we're out to dinner or something like that, but like I really do not drink that much anymore, and it is all thanks to this book. It completely changed my mindset about alcohol. I really don't mean to mention this book to trigger anyone. I don't mean to make anyone feel ashamed for drinking habits. I don't want any kind of negative commentary around this. It really was just for my own curiosity and my own benefit, and I literally changed my life and my habits because of reading this book. I want to read this book again because I just feel like I took so much away from it. I would love to annotate it and to just, really actually take notes on it this time because I had just listened to it on audio, but I really got to give it to this book. It completely changed my life this year, and I needed to give it an honorable mention. Okay, now that's enough for the hard stuff. Okay, I was being vulnerable there, and I hope that that was okay with you, but now we're going to get into the fiction. Now we're getting into the fantasy romance. Now we're going to get into my top 5 favorite books of the year because I'm salivating. I'm salivating in the fact that I want to talk to you about these books so bad. So bad, okay? Number 5, we have Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. This is the first book in the Kindred's Curse saga, and I was obsessed with this book. Unfortunately, hold on, I need to give a disclaimer in the fact that this is the only book I've read of the series. I am a chronic series putter-offer where I read the first book and then I end up not continuing for months and months and months on end. And unfortunately, that has happened with this book. But I do not mean to say that this is not worth going on because I've heard the rest of the series is incredible. Okay, what is this book about? Spark of the Everflame follows our main character, Diam. She is a healer kind of like an apprentice healer. Her mother was a healer and she's kind of learning from her mother. But in this world, there are 2 types of people. There are humans who do not have any type of like powers or magic or anything. And then there are descendants. And descendants are kind of like the upper class of society. They are said to be descended from these like gods or creatures that came down to this planet and then like procreated with the humans, and they all have like special powers. In the beginning of the book, Diam's mother mysteriously disappears and you don't know why. But Diam has some clues linked as to why she thinks this has happened. She ends up kind of going on a quest to figure out where her mother went, why she disappeared, and it leads her to interacting more with the descendants, and it ends up leading into a romance as well. Not only does it lead to a romance, but it also leads to an enemies to lovers romance. My favorite kind, okay? I really enjoyed this book for a few different reasons. First of all, this book is an epic fantasy romance, which is my new favorite genre of fantasy. Epic fantasy romance definitely places more emphasis on the fantasy portions of the book, but then also brings in the romance in the end. And I just feel like it gives so much more context to the world, and you get to know the characters so much more and really picture them in this world rather than trying to world build around a character's romance. Like, I really feel like epic fantasy romance starts off first with the fantasy plot and then you get into the romance, and it just feels like it adds so much more intrigue. The other reason why I like this book is because the male love interest is not super obvious at first. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit obvious, but like not completely. The romantic tension is so drawn out in the best way possible in this book, okay? And you barely even get any satisfaction romantically in this book. But I've heard the second and the third book really, really ramp up in the romance department, and I cannot wait because I feel like we just got such an incredible first installment into this book. It really, really set up the world nicely. It really set up the characters nicely. The one ding that I did have for this book is that I feel like it did focus more on the telling rather than the showing when it came to the hate to love. Like, Diam would clearly be kind of in love with this guy, and she would just be like, ugh, he's the worst. And I'm like, girl, you love him, okay? So that was one thing that I didn't absolutely love about this book, but I chose to let it slide because the fantasy plotline is so amazing. There's so much more to explore within this world than we got, and I'm just so excited to continue on with the series and see where we end up in the future. I gave it a 4.5 stars. It was phenomenal. Definitely in my top favorite books of the year. Oh my God. Are you ready for this next one? Because I am. Okay, because I am. Slot number 4 of Best Books of 2024. A Court of Silver Flames. You guys, I can't believe I've only read this book this year. I love this book, okay? Honestly, I feel like from here on out, All of the rest of these books could be tied for my top favorite. Actually, no. This and the next one are on like category 2, but like the top 2 books of this year are like honestly tied, okay? But this book, let me explain to you my journey going on with this book. So I got to admit to you, I did not love the ACOTAR series. I think I convinced myself that I like the ACOTAR series, and I know that the series is so beloved, and this is like no slight to anyone who loves that series, but like I literally forgot everything. I forgot everything about all of those books. Like ACO War, what is that? I literally couldn't tell you anything that happened in that book, but I was not like a super huge fan of the romantic couple in ACOTAR. I know that might offend some people and I apologize, but I really wasn't. I was kind of annoyed with them all the time. So that's why I feel like I put this book off for so long. But House of Flame and Shadow came out earlier this year and I needed to catch up because I love the Crescent City series. That is honestly one of my favorite series of all time as well. And I was told that I should read this book before I read House of Flame and Shadow. So I did. Reluctantly, I did. But my God, was this one of my favorite books of the year. I am so sad that it took me that long to read this book. I laughed. I cried like heavy sob crying in this book. I love Nesta as a main character. I felt like I related to her so much, and that probably says something about me if you've read this book. But I really, really loved her. I felt like she was definitely a hard wall to break through, but I really felt like I went on a journey with her character in this book. Now, was there a ton of smut in this book? Yeah. Yeah, there was, and I loved it, okay? Don't listen to the audiobook. Do not listen to the audiobook. It's terrible. You must read this book with your own eyes, okay? I loved this book so much. I love Nesta. I love Cassian. It was a perfect Sarah J. Maas romance for me. I also felt like it really helped me understand ACOTAR as a whole series even more. And I legitimately think about Nesta all the time. 5 stars, one of my favorite books of all time, cannot sing its praises even more. If you are interested in me doing a spoilery reading vlog, I did one and it's linked down below. It was a great time. One of my favorite vlogs ever. Okay, we are on to book number 3 for best books of 2024. And I am kind of cheating with this one, okay? Because it's not just one book, it's 3. And that is the Red Rising trilogy, the first 3 books in this series, but specifically Golden Sun. Okay, if I could only pick one out of the series, this one was the best one out of the series. You guys, what took me so long to read Red Rising? What did? I'm obsessed with this book series. In the first one, Red Rising, you are following our main character, Darrow. He is a red in a world where humans are genetically modified to represent various colors throughout society. Reds are the lowest ranked color in the society, and Darrow's upbringing and entire life's existence has been to help terraform and mine on the planet Mars in order to bring over humans who are left on Earth. This is set like way into the future where humans have essentially outgrown Earth and are unable, it is an unsustainable planet anymore. They sent these people to Mars to help terraform it so humans can eventually move there. In the first 70 pages of the series, everything that I just told you gets flipped on its head, okay? And we enter into an intergalactic space war. It's outrageous. It's twists. It turns. You get so attached to characters and then they die. And it's amazing in the best way possible. I loved this book series so much. And here's what I will say. If you liked Red Rising, read the second one, Golden Sun. If you don't like Red Rising, read the second one because you might like it, okay? It was outstanding. I will say Pierce Brown's writing was a little bit different for me. It's very like factual and dry writing. It's not very purple prose at all, if anything at all. It literally like describes very factual representations of what the characters are doing. He tends to time jump within sentences. Like all of a sudden it'll just be like a month later and you're like, what happened during that month? No one knows. And things happen very, very quickly. If you're not paying close attention to the audiobook, you could literally miss like 2 years in the blink of an eye. It's not very drawn out at all. It really twists and turns. Things are happening on every single page turn. And Golden Sun, you guys, when I tell you the ending of this book, I was listening to it in the car and I'm sitting there like I couldn't move. I couldn't get out of the seat in the car. I was like, I need to process what's going on. It was outstanding. If you like sci-fi, if you like space dramas, if you like Anything that has to do with space, you will love this book. If you like action, you will love this book. If you like funny, weird characters, you will like this book. Also, at the same time, you can't get too attached to anyone because people die really quickly and there's no warning. Okay, literally no warning, and you're like, that was one of the main characters and they're just gone. And you just have to live with it. I just love how this series is so unpredictable. You really don't know what's going to happen next, and it just keeps you on your toes the entire time. The only gripe I have with it is I don't feel like Pierce Brown really does women characters very well. But honestly, and normally I don't do this, I'm kind of choosing to overlook that because the storyline is just has me by the throat. I literally couldn't put this book series down. I feel like this trilogy really did define my reading in 2024. I absolutely loved it, and I cannot wait to get going on to the next book. Also, the commentary about a postmodern society, about the collapse of civilization. Like, we are living through some of these times, okay? It's just outstanding. I would recommend, if you love an action, adventure, space, anything, like, you are gonna like this book. Please read it. Don't be like me and wait like 5 years to read it and then be like, what was I doing that whole time? All right, we are down to the top 2 favorite books of 2024. And I gotta say, these books are honestly tied. These books are honestly tied. They are 2 different genres. And this next book was my top book of 2024 until the first book came along, okay? But the second one, number 2 of best books of 2024, is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. Are you kidding? Are you kidding me with this book? My God. Okay, also got the Fairy Loot edition because absolutely loved it. And I needed a special edition ASAP. When I talked to you earlier about how much I love the genre epic fantasy romance and how much I feel like epic fantasy romance has really developed in 2024, it's this book. It's this book. This is the best one. Here, put it in your TBR pile right now because this is the best epic fantasy romance and fantasy romance that I've ever read. So When the Moon Hatched is set in a fantasy world where on the poles of this planet, there are dragon hatching grounds. The entire planet essentially revolves around dragons, and dragons are kind of like a political symbol in this world. If you have a dragon, you tend to have like more kind of like political power and whatnot, and it tends to be the people who are like the queens and the kings and stuff like that in this world. So you're following our main character, Rave, who is an assassin. She gets hired to kind of do odd jobs for this rebellion group in this kingdom, and she ends up getting herself stuck into some very sticky situations, okay? She ends up getting captured by a rebellion group, and everything just starts going from there. There is a lot of exploring to do in this book throughout the world, and you follow Rave as she tries to figure out how to get out of these situations and figure out really who she is as well. On the opposite spectrum of Rave is Khan Vagor, and he is the male main character in this book. He is part of kind of like more of the nobility of this world, but he has like a very dark side to him that you get to explore throughout this book. So Khan and Rave end up intersecting into this book, and of course it's a fantasy romance, okay? But one of the things that I love about this book is that the romance is really, really, really drawn out. You guys, I love a little bit of tension in my fantasy romances, okay? And this book strings that tension out like literally to the very last page. It's so well written, it's so well played out, and it just feels like when the romantic, tension finally gets resolved, it is well earned. I personally loved this book so much, again, because it is focused way more on the fantasy elements rather than the romantic elements. I just love a fantasy romance that has a really great fantasy plot line and like world building, and I really, really feel like Sarah A. Parker did a phenomenal job of this. Genuinely, this is my favorite fantasy romance I've ever read. I thought it was phenomenally done. The writing, oh my God, I didn't even talk about the writing, okay? The writing in this book is also phenomenal. It was so beautiful. Like, not only is she telling you this really intriguing, compelling story, but she's adding so much color to it. She's adding so many descriptive, beautiful words. The whole concept of the book was so perfectly done. There is also a magical element to it. Not only does it involve dragons, but it involves people having magical powers, and you kind of get to explore those powers throughout the book. It's Just a perfect fantasy romance. I wouldn't change a thing about this book, and I cannot implore you more to go and pick this book up if you have any interest in it or you'd like fantasy romance in general. I do not regret it one bit. It is literally my favorite fantasy romance book I've ever read, and I cannot tell you to read it more. And last but not least, oh, definitely not least, When the Moon Hatched was definitely my favorite book up until this point, okay? In 2024, I read When the Moon Hatched, I think in June, and then I hit September and October, and then this book came into my life. It came into the world's life, and that is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. You guys, not stopped thinking about this book since the day I read it, okay? I love this book so much, and dare I say it's better than normal people, okay? And I don't think I ever would think that I would ever say those words in the existence of my human being, but I think it is. I have sat with this book for so much longer now, and I genuinely think this is Sally Rooney's best book she's written. I'm like not even kidding you. And my God, Marianne and Connell will always have a place in my heart, but Intermezzo, this was phenomenal. This was perfect. I also annotated it too, by the way. It was a phenomenal journey. I cried like multiple times in this book, maybe like 8+. It was outstanding. So let me explain to you what Intermezzo is about. You are following our two main characters, Peter and Ivan. It is a dual perspective book. Peter and Ivan are brothers, and their dad passes away. They're at his funeral, and that is the onset of the book. As the book continues, you are following them through their grief. Now, Peter and Ivan, although they are brothers, they have things that are similar about them, but they also have things that are completely opposite. Peter is about 30 years old. He's a very well-established attorney in Dublin. Peter is definitely one who's like more of the social acolyte, I'll say. He is just someone who has a lot of friends. He can pick up women really easily. He's very attractive. Like, he's just like the typical golden boy on the outside. On the inside, he's battling a lot of demons. And then on the opposite spectrum, you have Ivan. And he's definitely in his early young adulthood. He is working on like his chess master, or like basically becoming someone who is a master chess player. He's someone who can like play 10 games of chess at one time and like win all of the games. And what I loved so much about this book is the dichotomy between Peter and Ivan. You're following both of them as they process their grief for their father, but it's never really like explicitly addressed. Both Peter and Ivan end up in age gap relationships where they're dating someone either like 10 years younger from them on Peter's side or 10 years older than them on Ivan's side. Ivan's relationship is one that is very innocent, is very naive, but it's so beautiful in how it blossoms throughout the book. And then Peter's is kind of just like a little bit disturbing and kind of twisted. He is in a love triangle with a few different women, and you are following him as he's navigating that difficulty of that relationship. But also at the same time, you can tell he is really trying to process the grief of his father and his father's passing, and he tries to cope with it in some unhealthy ways. It runs the gamut of emotions, and I feel like the best way to describe this is it's like when you are watching a music video or something and you're seeing all these people go through emotions of like love and crying and happiness and tears, and it's just like this overwhelming feeling of emotion in you. That is the feeling of this book. I just feel like this book really reminds you how beautiful it is to be a human, but I also just love that Sally Rooney can evoke that kind of reaction in me. I just feel like I could cry even talking about it. Like, I'm literally getting choked up because I love this book so much. I cried so many times, and I really, really love it. I think this book is going to sit with me for many, many years. I know I'm going to reread this book at some point. The quotes in here are outstanding. Like, not only does Sally Rooney evoke such an emotional reaction within me, but she writes it so perfectly and so beautifully, and the way she is able to describe human emotion in words is outstanding. It makes me so happy to be a reader, and it makes me so happy to be a fan of Sally Rooney because I think she really did one with this book. I cannot praise it enough. I absolutely loved it. If you've loved any of Sally Rooney's writings or books before, you must read this. You must read it. It is so beautiful. I love this book with my whole heart and soul. By far best book of 2024. It was phenomenal, and I feel like I just talked for like 20 minutes just about this book. Okay, everyone, my camera is about to overheat, so it is time to be done with this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave your best book of the year down in the comments below, and if you don't want to leave words, you can leave a firework because we are at the end of 2024, and let's ring in the new year with some more amazing books and amazing reads. I cannot wait to see what 2025 is going to bring. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a great rest of your day or night wherever you are. And peace and love to everyone out there. Have a great new year. Bye.